Good evening and welcome to the League of Women Voters Forum for the candidates of the Los Altos School District. Tonight's program is co-sponsored by the Los Altos Library. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization of women and men established to promote political responsibility through informed, active government. The League does not support, oppose, or evaluate political candidates or parties. After careful study, we will take positions on political issues. Tonight's candidates forum is presented under our educational arm. If you find these forums useful and are not yet a member of the League, please consider joining. Your membership and dues will help continue our work. Membership forms are on the table just outside in the lobby, and you can join online. The Leagues of Santa Clara County sponsors a website, votersedge.org. Voters Edge will give you information about the candidates, the state propositions, and any county measures. Please pick up your Voters Edge bookmark on the same table outside. I would like to acknowledge the members who are helping with the forum this evening. The question sorters are Katie Capodonaco and Carol Kuiper. Our timer is Tricia Jordan, and Carol Katz will be picking up your questions along with me. KMVT is videotaping the forum, and in 3 to 4 days, the tape will be available on our website. Our moderator tonight is Jan Pepper. Jan is a past president of the League of Women Voters of Los Altos Mountain View and is a Los Altos City Council member. And now I will turn the podium over to Jan.
Okay, thank you all for coming tonight and for attending this very important candidates forum. So we'll jump into this right away. The first will be opening statements from each of the candidates, and you drew numbers, and this is the order that you will make your opening statements in, and you have 2 minutes for your opening statement. We have a timer who is right there, and she'll be letting you know when 1 minute remains, when 15 seconds remains, and when the time is up. And then when we move on to questions, you will have 1 minute to answer each question, and I will rotate the order in which you do those. And then you'll also have a closing statement of 2 minutes or 1 minute? 1.5 minutes. Okay. There's a compromise right there. All right, so Brian, if you could start, please.
All right. Thank you to the League for hosting this forum. Thank you to Councilmember Pepper for moderating. Thank you to everyone who's here and watching online. My name is Brian Johnson. Having served on the LASD board since my election in 2016, I'm running for re-election this year to a full term. Thanks to a great partnership with the City of Mountain View, we are on the verge of stretching our $150 million in facilities funds into $250 million and purchasing a new campus in the north end of our district. This will not only provide important community facilities and open space, but also ensure that we have the capacity to serve the students who will live in the thousands of apartments that we expect to be built over the next couple of decades. In the last few years, we have worked with our teachers to continue to evolve and improve our educational program by providing increased time and money for training and collaboration, as well as instructional support teachers in math and literacy who help develop lessons and disseminate best practices across the district. Our most recent summer school session delivered at minimal cost to parents both a summer school experience and targeted education to more than 100 of our most underserved students, not only helping them stem the usual summer slide, but delivering really impressive educational gains. Unfortunately, our teachers are struggling with the same affordability crisis that affects so many of our families. Recent sharp increases in both pension fund costs and special education costs have meant that teacher salaries have not kept up with the cost of living. We have implemented several programs to help teachers find and afford local housing, and I look forward to working with Supervisor Smidian and others to create solutions in the next few years. The turbulence of these times is affecting our students just as much, if not more, than ourselves. And the demand for mental health services on our campuses has increased sharply as well. I have worked with the board over the last 2 years to more than triple our contribution to CHAP, the local organization which supports our students' mental and emotional well-being. There's a lot of work left to do, but I look forward to navigating these challenges and ensuring that our district maintains its reputation as one of the best in California.
Shali, go ahead.
Thank you for having us tonight, and I really appreciate that all of you came out on a work and a school night. So great to see so many kids here. My name is Shali Sirke, and our family has enjoyed 9 wonderful years in LASD. My daughter went to Almond from K through 6 and to Egan for 7th and 8th grades. She's now a freshman at Los Altos High School. I am running for school board because I feel that the perspective that I bring would complement the strengths already on the board. I am a community builder, and I believe that whatever decisions we make over the next 4 years, we're going to need to move forward together as a community to be successful. I have a master's in public health focusing on community health, and I have an undergraduate degree in anthropology looking at how people relate to the institutions in their environment. When I took time off to raise my daughter, I started volunteering heavily, first at Almond, then in the school district, and then community-wide and region-wide. I have co-chaired campaigns for LASD that led to the successful passage of Measure N, the $150 million bond initiative in 2014, Measure GG, the $2.8 million parcel tax in 2016, and most recently Measure E, the MVLA bond. I have served as EVP and president of Los Altos Mountain View PTA Council, which has administrative oversight over the PTAs in LASD, Mountain View, Wisman, and MVLA, giving me a greater perspective on the issues that our schools face regionally, not just in our own district. I have served on Site Council, the English Language Advisory Committee, and held various leadership positions at Almond, both on and off the PTA. Currently, I am a community relations specialist at El Camino Hospital and an associate director at the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence. I sit on the board at CHAC, Community Health Advisory Council, which provides mental health counseling at all of our schools. I am vice chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee on Finance, which looks at our district's budget, and co-chair of the Los Altos Community Coalition, focusing on downtown vibrancy and community building. Coming from the nonprofit public health world, my leadership style is collaborative and focuses on bringing diverse groups together to work towards a common goal. I want to bring all of my experience and networks to work on behalf of our school district. Thank you.
Ying.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ying Liu. I'm a candidate for LASD this year, but I'm not a typical candidate you might expect. I didn't go through K through 12 education in the US. I came here as a Chinese teacher 21 years ago. Upon completion of my MBA, I joined Apple, where I worked for 12 years and was promoted to executive position at the age of 32. Unlike other candidates, actually, I moved to this community 4 years ago. Immediately after we settled, I jumped on different nonprofit organizations as a board member or as committee member, including the board of Boys and Girls Club of Silicon Valley, Los Altos Hills Education Committee, and currently I'm an avid member for Los Altos High School, and also I serve on the steering committee for Junior Olympics, and also I'm an active volunteer at the school. As a bullish parent, my motivation to run for LASD is very simple. I'm passionate about public education, and I have a strong desire to join the team and take on the challenge and solve the issue for our community and for our school district. After meeting with many school administrators, board members, community thought leaders, parents, residents, I came to a conclusion that I can bring my unique combination of skill sets and perspectives to the decisions and executions of decisions in our district. Thank you for the opportunity tonight. I look forward to sharing my views and ideas on how we can make LASD better for the community and for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to questions from the audience, and the first one is a softball. And we'll start with Shali, then Brian, then Ying on this one. What special strengths do you bring to the LASD school board? We'll start with Shali, Brian, and then Ying.
Not listening, apparently.
Okay.
I am a good listener. I think one of my greatest strengths is that I'm very collaborative. In my professional and volunteer lives, I have worked on projects that have brought diverse groups together to sit at the same table and to work towards a common goal. And I will bring that mindset, that vision of always keeping the community and our target audience first and foremost in any kind of discussions. I will bring that to the board. And I think that someone who has an eye and a special focus on community building will really complement, like I said in my opening statement, the strengths that we already have on the board.
Next is Brian, and then Ying.
So prior to becoming a stay-at-home dad about 10 years ago, I was a software developer for a long time. And I found that what I take from my engineering experience is a couple of different things. One is sort of a logical, dispassionate approach. I've been in lots of meetings where lots of people were very passionate about different ways to do particular things. And when I run into disagreement or alternate suggestions, I never take them personally. It's always just very much stepping back, looking at the arguments, looking at the data ideally, and figuring out what the best way is to move forward. The other thing I take from my work experience is a product focus. When you're designing consumer software, you're really looking at what is the person using it trying to do today. And I think that's something that we definitely need to bring to more of our interactions with the community, with parents. Just a question of what information do they need to get about their students and what do we need to convey. At this point, also having been on the board for a couple of years, I think I've got a deep understanding of exactly how it works. Boards are very different from regular organizations. When I worked, I had a boss and underlings, and now I really have learned how to be collaborative with 5 people who don't always agree.
Thank you. Ying?
Okay. I think there are 3 things I can bring to the board. The first thing, I believe I'm a person who can always see the common ground before we see differences. After talking to so many parents and the residents in our community, I really see that everybody want their kids to strive for their full potential. I really see that people want to keep our neighborhood school models. I really see that people want to have a peaceful life in our community. I see people really want to make sure that, we take full responsibility and spend public funds wisely. And secondly, given my professional background, I dealt with many conflicts in the past. I used to be responsible for corporate social responsibility at Apple. And my professional experience tell me that, how we can work and collaborate with people and solve conflicts. And third thing is basically my negotiation skill. Procurement, that has been really what I built with in my professional life. So I think I can contribute to the future facility project. Thank you.
Thank you. For this next question, we will answer it in reverse order: Ying, Shali, Vladimir, and Brian. How will you further LASD's mission of educating all children?
All children, I think I really see the golden opportunity in our community because I do not see the full I think none of the other school districts, if I look at, has the full spectrum of diversification as what we have here, both economic, socio-economically, and also I think in terms of background. So the way how I see this is, I think we need to really address the concern for different people. There are definitely, the kids that are on the upper trend that, they need probably more personal attention, or their kids need to strengthen their social skills. And also, I think Brian mentioned, one of the challenges we have is how we're going to address, the issues like the enrollment growth in North El Camino. I think if I'm elected, I would dedicate a big chunk of my time, to make that neighborhood successful. Thank you.
Well, I think our school district does a wonderful job of educating all of our children. As I mentioned in my opening statement, our family went to Almond. Almond has roughly 20% of its population comes from Mountain View. A lot of low socioeconomic status and non-English speaking families. And so while there, I served on site council, and I was on site council when we instituted a computer program called Lexia to help the kids improve their language skills. And then also through tutoring one such child, reading with her after school, and realizing that the books that I sent home with her, she was a first grader at the time, her mom was using those books to improve her English language skills. So what I would do to educate all children in LASD, I would look for innovative methods like Lexia, but not just technology, but also the personal touch, and reach out to our families as well, because with family support, I think that our kids can go a lot further. So I sincerely believe in educating the whole child, and that also includes their families.
I'd like to thank everybody for appearing here on time. In the Los Altos School District, we have about 5 to 15% of our children that are struggling. And we've spent a lot of the time on our board trying to support those particular children. For instance, we have several years we've increased our summer program, particularly to address children who would fall through the gaps during the summer and would fall backwards. We practice targeted intervention in the schools, in the classrooms. We have our teachers collaborate, and this is a new thing. They get half a day on Thursday to collaborate specifically so that they can improve their teaching methods and reach children that they would otherwise not reach. And we support their professional development. Finally, in special education, a couple of years ago, we made a fantastic hire. We stole her away from Cupertino, a woman called Jennifer Kiker, and she is awesome for special ed. Thanks.
So Vladimir mentioned some of our current efforts, summer school to help reach the kids who are otherwise struggling. In special ed, specifically one of the things that we have started at Block and are looking to expand is called team teaching, where a single classroom has both a subject teacher and a special education teacher so that the kids who need more help are mainstreamed, but all of the kids have 2 teachers in the room who can help with all of the children, because it's important that sort of nobody get left behind under the radar. Another thing that we want to do is we're talking about moving 6th grade to the junior highs and creating middle schools, and one of the reasons we've been talking about doing that is because it will allow us to dramatically increase the number of electives that we can offer so that each kid can really find their interest and have more time pursuing things that really interest them and more projects. And as Vladimir mentioned, the extra training that we do and the instructional support teachers that I mentioned in my opening are not just about the kids who are struggling, but it's really about helping our teachers figure out ways to reach every student in the classroom where they are, both those that are struggling and those who are well ahead.
Okay, the next question some of you have touched on, but I want you to go into more depth. How do you plan to, or how have you supported special education, poor and English learners? And in addition, which schools have your children attended? So with this one, we'll go Vladimir, Ying, Brian, Shawley.
My children go to Gardner-Willis. I've gone there for 7 years. And my eldest now is at Egan. My daughter will be there next year. I'm not sure the intent of the question.
It just says, how do you plan to, or how have you supported special education, poor and English learners? So just focusing on special ed and English learners.
So I think I've addressed special ed. Our English language learners, we address those by concentrating on literacy. In fact, literacy is our focus district-wide this year, because we know that children who are not able to read well by 3rd grade have typically very much worse outcomes as they move on.
Okay. I really think one of the strengths in our school district is the special the special education. Just from the budget point of view, I really see the district invested a lot of resources and actually fund in continuously improving our special ed. So I think that's really the strength that we need to continue. And with regard to English learner, actually, actually my kids are classified as English learner. I really see, just as a parent who is not clearly not a native speaker, I really see that I think the curriculum can be more targeted, for the young kids, and then really attract them to learn and read, the books that they did not have access to when they were little. So I think that this is something that we can work with the curriculum committee to further improve the English learner curriculum. Thank you.
So I have a 6th grade daughter at Santa Rita and an 8th grade daughter at Egan in 8th grade who came up through Santa Rita. Just trying to touch on a couple of things. With respect to special ed, we actually have a variety of programs all around the district. At Santa Rita, we have something called Therapeutic Special Day for kids who have particular emotional needs, and that program is actually so successful that many other districts send their students to us because they're not capable of accommodating them themselves. For English language learners, Vladimir touched on a lot of it, but it's also important to note that we know that taking a student in whatever grade and just trying to get them fluent in English will then just leave them behind in the subject material. So one of the things that we've been training our teachers on how to do is how to make sure that they get as much of the material that the class as a whole is covering as they can while we work intensively to bring their fluency up to par, because we found that produces the best results in the long term. And then for socioeconomically disadvantaged students, a lot of that just comes down to being very conscious about not doing things on campuses and in our communities that leave out those who might not have the same monetary resources that a lot of us are lucky to have.
So I have one child. She went through Almond K through 6, then Egan 7th and 8th, and she is now a freshman at Los Altos High School. I don't have direct experience working with special ed children, but I can tell you that one thing they have in common with our low socioeconomic students and our English language learners is this whole concept of keeping them in the mainstream of school life. I think we do a fabulous job with the literacy and bringing them up to speed with math and reading. I already mentioned before about how I feel like they need family support as well. But we also need to look at the other aspects of the child, and that is that they're not feeling left out of mainstream life at our schools. When I ran the spring book fair at Almond for 7 years, and I know that these books are sold at full price, and some of them are really quite expensive. And I would see children come in with wads of cash because their parents thought it was important enough for them to take part in a school ritual. And I really want to support those parents, and I want to support those kids, and not make them feel left out. Thank you.
Our next question will go Brian, Vlad, Shali, Ying. Okay. So if LASD moves to a 6 to 8 middle school model, what does the board need to consider?
Well, first of all, we need to make a final. So the decision has not been made final because moving to a 6 to 8 middle school model, among other things, requires space on our junior high campuses and money to build more classrooms, neither of which have been imminent. So while we've gotten a couple of reports over the years, we haven't gotten a final analysis of the program, 6th grade program that we're currently offering at our elementary school so that we can really compare it with the program that we'll offer at a middle school. So we need to make that final determination. Then we need to make sure that we have the money to build more classrooms and the space, and that will sort of depend on what else is going on with our facilities fund.
As Brian said, facilities and dollars are a big part of it. If we went to a 6 to 8 model, it would add about 200 kids to each of Block and Egan, and currently that's just not possible because the traffic situation there is terrible. But one of the things that we need to consider is parental input, and we have not had parents give us their view on what they think is best for their child. The evidence seems to support a 6 to 8 model, and I place a lot of weight on what our educational professionals, our curriculum instruction directors have to say on it, and I would take all those things into consideration. Thank you.
So I agree with Vladimir that we do need to get parental input to see what our community wants. One thing I love about LASD is that they are very responsive to their community, hence why we keep our small neighborhood school models intact. I personally am very excited that if we do move to a 6 to 8 model, we'll have increased opportunities in terms of electives for our 6th graders. We would be able to get teachers who are credentialed in single subjects. So that would be definitely one thing to consider is how are we going to attract and retain these teachers to teach these wonderful programs. I'm sure we will touch on teacher housing and teacher recruitment in another question. But I do think it's an exciting opportunity to try some new programming.
So to me, I think for the 6 to 8 model involve 3 things. The number one thing is financially. Whether or not we have the fund. First of all, how much it's going to be and how much money we have in our reserve or in Measure N money that can be allocated to support that transition. And secondly, it's going to be the facility utilization. If we move to the 6 to 8 model, there are going to be over 500 students moved from elementary school to the middle school. And in that case, some of the schools may be underutilized. Just giving the capacity of each school is 570 to 600 right now, but each of the school will move, about 60 to 80 students to the middle school model. So I think the facility utilization is another thing that we need to take into consideration. And the third thing is really for the kids. For the kids to transition from elementary school to middle school, how we make sure that they make friends, how we make sure they social and socially, mature to take on that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one will be Shali, Brian, Ying, and Vlad. Vladimir, okay. When asked about education for all kids, LASD often talks about the low-performing or ELA students. What about the higher end or enhancing learning experiences for the kids in the middle? So Shali, Brian, Ying, Vladimir.
Oh, that's a really good question because I do know that we do tend to talk a lot more about the kids that we need to bring up to grade level. From having served on the CHAP board, I can tell you that all kids have a lot of issues that they're dealing with. Some may not be struggling with financial issues at home the way others do. Some might be struggling with peer pressure, academics. I do think that we need to take care of all of our kids. Our kids who are performing at a very high level, yes, certainly we need some educational programs for them or individualized educational plans for them to be more challenged. But we also need to make sure that, that they're not burning out, that they're pushing themselves appropriately and making sure that they have the support that they need so that, hopefully they won't need one of our chat counselors. But I would not like to see what would happen at that point. But yes, but I think that we should definitely look at how we can challenge all of our kids individually, and that a lot of that falls on our teachers. And so teacher support is going to be very important for them. Thank you.
Well, I certainly agree with Shali that making sure that we support all the kids psychologically and emotionally is very important. I think academically, there's a number of things that we've done that I alluded to, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. As those of you who don't have kids will not know, on Thursdays now our elementary schools get out an hour earlier than they do on all the other days. And the reason why we did that is because it gives our teachers a chance to really collaborate every week and talk to each other. The days when the teacher sort of went into their own classroom and closed the door and was alone with their kids all day and sort of never got the chance to interact with other adults are well over. And so now our teachers really have a chance every week, and for most of them more often than that, to bounce ideas off of each other, talk about both how to help the underperforming kids, but also how to challenge the kids that they might have who need a little bit more. And the other thing has been a big shift, and it's not just specific to our school, but into project-based learning and giving kids the chance to really go into depth on topics. Rather than just teaching an endless succession of dates and names in history class, we really let the kids dig into topics and explore in depth and create, presentations and artifacts.
I think the success of education is also based on our expectations, and the expectations are measured by satisfaction, not necessarily in scores or grades. So what I see, I think your district, or probably in a lot of districts are facing the same thing is they're probably, there are two ends and then there's bubble in the middle. I do agree. I think the individualized plan, individualized learning, that's the way to go. And as a BCS parent, actually, I probably can comment a couple of things I feel like BCS does well. Because at the beginning of every semester, my kids are asked to provide their individual personal plans. And then throughout the semester, they're going to track and frequently report it back to the teacher and the parent about, what kind of progress they have already made. So if I'm elected, I will create best practice sharings in our district and also with the top schools outside of our district, because I think there are definitely a lot of common topics that we can share the experience with each other. Thank you.
I would like to do more for our kids who excel in certain areas. We're limited by funding. We're limited by teachers. Opportunity for teachers to help us. One of the things I'd like to avoid, make sure that we avoid, is we don't end up in a situation where there's a lot of stress on kids to perform. I really value play. I think our kids value play. I really don't want to see them stressed out. I would want to explore enrichment programs. We don't do a very good job on language, for instance. I would like to explore STEM programs, art programs. And I'm also mindful of my wife's comment that she was in AP classes and she was an unhappy B student, and if she had been in not AP classes, she would have been a very happy A student.
Thank you. Okay, the order of the next one we'll have Ying, Shali, Vladimir, Brian. Many parents and kids were disappointed with the new English curriculum at Egan last year. What accountability does the board have with regard to curriculum changes? And how would you address that?
I see the role of the board as trustee are threefold. One is advocate for public education, and second is the financial accountability, and the third thing is bridge the community and resolve the conflict. So I definitely fully aware there Egan parents actually came to me and asked me about my input of what happened last year. I really see. I cannot say this is really, the board should take the full responsibility. I think it's a matter of all stakeholders as a role in this thing. And then now it's a matter of how we're going to resolve it. What my understanding is now the teachers are being trained to really further understand the curriculum and even make modifications in the curriculum. And then the students are setting expectations on what they can learn and inside of the classroom and outside the classroom. So I really see the improvement is going there. So I would applaud the LSD for taking the risk and do some experimental learning last year. But at the same time, I think people can be better prepared for the changes and the transition.
So I was actually at all of those Egan PTA meetings where the parents were quite upset about what was happening in the English program. And from what I understood from listening to what was being said is that they didn't really understand what the English program was. And the teachers knew what they were doing. And I have a friend who had done such a similar program in a different school that her children had attended and knew how successful that program was and how effective it was. I think that the board's responsibility is that we did not communicate well enough to the parents what that program was, what are its benefits, and why are we actually moving to that sort of English program. Our teachers, I'm going to probably end up saying this quite a few times, our teachers are the front line of education. When there is any kind of frustration that parents have, they take it out on the teachers, not realizing that it may be a district decision. And so I think that if we had someone who was at the district level completely focused on communicating out to the parents and getting their input coming back into the board, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
So I'd like to echo some of what Shally said. The classroom is the teacher's workplace, and it is inappropriate to bully teachers under any circumstances. The right thing to do is to go talk to the principal. If the principal is not responsive, then you come to the district and talk to the district. And if they are unresponsible, then you come to the board and talk to us. And I know of several instances where highly qualified teachers or administrators have left because of classroom bullying, and I think that's completely unacceptable. I don't know about English at Egan because I wasn't there at the time in the classroom, at the school, but I'm responsive to parents who come to me and say, here's an issue, what would you like to do about it? And so I would request everybody to get in contact with the board if they have gone through the steps and haven't been addressed.
I definitely see, one of the roles of a board member is to be both a representative of the district and a conduit when necessary for issues being raised. Now, of course, sometimes I would tell someone who comes to me and complains to go back and have you talked to the teacher yet? Have you talked to the principal? And there are channels to go through. But I definitely want to be open when people have concerns, and which is why over the last 2 years, I've both attended as many PTA meetings as I possibly can and also held office hours at coffee shops around the district to try to get out more into the community and hear more of those concerns. Not every rollout is perfect. I think one of the reasons why the issues at Egan caught the district by surprise was that a very similar program had actually been in place at Block for a few years, and there had not been issues there. Now, as everybody knows, not every rollout is perfect. Often the change that you're trying to make will expose assumptions that you didn't know were being made or holes in procedures, and I think that's a lot of what happened at Egan. I know that the parents there that I've talked to this year are much happier once adjustments and the fixes that were needed have been made.
Okay, that provides a good segue into talking more about teachers. So how important are teachers to the district? Where do you stand on current negotiations? Where are your priorities? Salaries, the classroom, or somewhere else? And we will go Latimer, Shawley, Brian, Ying.
As I said, teachers are our educational professionals. They're trained, they love our kids, they're with our kids for 6 or more hours during the day, and we owe them as much support and respect as we possibly can give them. As far as negotiations with the teachers' union is concerned, we are very lucky to have a fabulous relationship with our union. We support them as much as we can, they support us as much as we can, and they deliver great education. A big issue especially for new teachers, is the cost of living here, and a major cost of living is housing. And so we are engaged in a number of different fronts on how to reduce the cost of housing to make living here a little bit more affordable. Thanks.
I would love more than a minute to talk about how important our teachers are. I fully respect our teachers and what they do. I mean, just take 1 minute to think about the fact that we hand over our kids for 6+ hours every day to these wonderful people who have to deal with our kids, and then we're going to go and bully them in the classroom or not respect the fact that it's very difficult to work here in Los Altos. So where do I stand on negotiations? If I could, I would give teachers way more money. I think no matter how much you pay a teacher, I think they're underpaid. But there's other things that we could do. We could help them with the cost of living, finding some creative solutions to help them with affordable housing. We can sort of make sure that, where parents do respect that the school is the teacher's workplace and that they are respected there and supported there by the district. So, and I fully support our teachers union. I've been endorsed by the Los Altos Teachers Association, and I take that endorsement very seriously. Thank you.
Brian, and then Ying.
Yeah, as others have said, I think the relationships that we have with the union now are pretty good, and I think I've also been endorsed by them, and I think that reflects that, and I take a lot of pride in that endorsement. We've talked about the need for housing, the need for more support for our teachers so they can work locally. Another thing that we do is we really encourage our teachers to continue their education. And one of the reasons our district is as good as it is we have a teacher body that, on almost without exception, takes advantage of that. We support them by giving them stipends that amount to several $1,000s in some cases for them to go and do multi-year accreditation programs that are really quite impressive. And a lot of them take advantage of that. And that's something that we would even like to expand and really sort of provide more money for training, more money for support, so that they're not sort of off on an island in their classroom, but that they really feel like they have a whole team behind them to help them when they need it.
I feel like the families come to our community not for the board members, regardless how good the board is. And also I noticed that given the outdated facilities in our district, I made to believe families are not come here for the facilities. I think the family move here for the teachers, because the teachers are true asset of our district. So I think with regard to negotiation, I've done many negotiations in my past life, but whenever it comes to people, I think we definitely need to put in mind, it's not just an economic negotiation. It's really, I think, we need to feel bonded together. So I think for the teachers, it should be a combination of compensation, the living support, the career development. I think that we can retain and recruit teachers, not for one single thing, but for a combination of many things. So if I'm elected and we come to negotiation, I would like to offer a full package of things, not just to focus on one or the other.
So what priority do you place on renegotiating teachers' pensions to redirect more money into the classroom? Let's go straight down the line, Brian, Vladimir, Shali, Ying. I didn't make up these questions. I'm just reading them. Do you want me to read it again? Okay.
I don't think that's something that's on the radar. We're not going to break promises that have been made to people who've been working hard for our children for, in some cases, decades. Pension costs are an issue, and that's mostly under the purview of the state organizations that we contribute money to manage those pensions. So I don't think that's an avenue that is really on the radar at all at this point.
I agree completely with Brian. I'd like to add that I don't think it's legally possible for us to adjust the pensions.
Well, I firmly believe that if you hire someone and you told them that this is what your pension was going to be as part of your package, then you need to pay them that, because that is just, it violates my sense of fairness that you would not pay them their pensions. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say on that.
I think the thing is, as I said, the teachers are the asset. I think it's very hard today to recruit and retain highly qualified teachers. So to me, I don't think pension or money is the issue. It's a matter of we give them pension, we give them career development opportunities. At the same time, I believe this community and our parents expect more out of our teachers. I think they want the teachers to go above beyond, what we normally expect out of public school teachers. So what I can say is, people know like Apple just launched the $1,500 iPhone. So when you try to pay a $15 iPhone, you probably expect the battery will last longer, have more features, and have a bigger screen. So I think that's what I like to say is I don't think money is the issue. It's a matter of how we can communicate our expectations and get all the teachers feel empowered to do the right things for our district and the schools.
Okay, let's change the subject slightly. How do you assess the current school facilities, the current ones, okay? And what facility upgrades need to be made and how should we fund those? Just focusing on our current school facilities. And let's go Shali, Ying, Vladimir, Brian.
So certainly a lot of our schools need upgrades. You know, if you walk around campus, you'll see that. But if you also walk around campus, you'll see incredibly happy children. You will see parents who are loitering because they just love being on campus and have to be kicked off by their principals. I was one of those parents, so I know. Yeah, the facilities, yes, certainly their facilities do need to be upgraded. And but I don't think, as Ying had said earlier, you don't come to the school district because of the facilities, you come because of the education. And so while I do think that we need to take a look at facilities and long-term solutions for our facilities, I think that we should not lose sight of the fact that we are doing a fantastic job of educating our children and keeping them happy and safe, and that's my opinion on that.
Ying.
Oh, that's a topic that I feel hard, to my heart. I like to hold to my heart. I moved from San Jose, Gary Green School District. I lived there for more than 10 years. The facilities in San Jose actually, honestly, a lot better than our district. And also, I had the opportunity to travel around the world and see many different facilities, school facilities in other parts of the world. I got to say, I really think our district could have done a better job in allocating public funds to upgrade our facilities. Facilities, not just how modern it is, it's a matter of safety, it's a matter of security, it's a matter of hygiene. There are so many elements of our facilities in addition to more advanced technologies in the classroom. And all the resources and the tools that we can give to the teachers to better equip our classrooms. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, when we upgraded some of our schools, we promised the remaining schools that we would upgrade them, and I think we owe them that in fairness. My concern is that 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, with the expected number of students that are coming from the north of El Camino area, that we will end up being severely overcrowded. And I personally view facilities as something that you need to have, but you don't come here for the facilities. You don't go to school for the facilities. It's not something that you really want. You need a minimum level, and that's what you should find. So I note that all of our schools have portables. And if we're my druthers, if we had the money, I would get rid of all of them and replace them with permanent buildings, but we don't have that money.
So there are a lot of strange and unfortunate things about school financing in California, and one of them is that the money available for each district for facilities is really dependent on the tax base of that district. So, for example, in Los Altos, we passed a $150 million facilities bond because that was just about the legal maximum to really get it done. Mountain View Wistman, which is right next door and has about the same number of children, passed a $250 million facilities bond because they have a lot of commercial development, and we're primarily a single-family district. So the overall value of the property within our borders is lower. And so that is just what it is. Fortunately, we have a wonderful body of teachers, and a temporary building is definitely not as nice looking as a permanent building, but our teachers are really good at making it work. And I encourage actually all of you to walk around our school campuses, because in addition to a lot of happy children, what you'll see is a lot of beautiful gardens, a lot of really well thought out spaces for children to play and imagine, and also artwork on the walls that is years of kids that have come through there and made their mark on the school and come back when they're in high school and college and really appreciate the special place that the school is, no matter how it looks kind of at a surface level.
Can I just say, when you walk around campus, please sign in at the main office first.
Okay, we're going to switch gears for a second here. In the spirit of transparency, can you please tell how you are funding your campaign and any organizations that you may be accepting contributions from or donations from. And let's go Brian, Vladimir, Ying, Shali.
Can I get a projector and just pull up my 460 that I filed yesterday?
Yeah.
I'm accepting donations. Brian Johnson for LASD.com, if any of you are interested. I'm also spending a lot of my own money, and I've gotten contributions from a few people, and also the Los Altos Teachers Association Political Action Committee.
I would strongly urge you to contribute to my campaign. Currently it's self-funded. I have accepted contributions from the Los Altos Teachers Association willingly and gladly, and I'm hoping that other parents and community members will contribute as well. All this information is in excruciating detail. Is available on the Cal Access website of the state, the Secretary of State, and you will notice my daughter gave 75 cents.
Ying, then Shali.
I'm not affiliated with any organization or other committees. Right now, all the campaign, or vast majority, 95%, are funded by myself because I really feel motivated to get my voice heard and also get a representative on the board. So basically, that's where the funding is from.
So, like my fellow colleagues up here, please go to cirque.com and donate. I just put up a PayPal button. Roughly half of my campaign is funded by what I call love money. It's my mom and dad, my mother-in-law, my cousins, a lot of family members are donating because they're just so thrilled that I'm running. And I do have some contributions, of course, from the community, like all of you. And one organization has donated, and that's Los Altos Teachers Association. And like Vladimir said, I'm very honored to take their donation. Thank you.
Okay. As a council member, I know how important it is to have all 5 council members actively engaged and prepared at our meetings. And when that doesn't occur, we have a fairly dysfunctional meeting. So what will you do to work with your fellow school board members to make sure everyone is actively engaged within the confines of the Brown Act, of course? So let's go backwards. Ying, Shali, Vladimir, Brian.
Yeah, first of all, I think we all need to follow the Brown Act guideline. So that's number one thing. And secondly, I read a book a few years ago. It's called Never Eat Alone. So that has been a method I used when I was in a corporate job, and I would like to use if I'm elected to be the board member. So which means I would like to have lunch partner, dinner partner, coffee partner with each one of them, and throughout the week. So at least we can share ideas, share frustrations, share information, just 2 of us, and before the meeting. So I think the communication is really the key, and the collaboration is really what I'm here for. As I said, I'm motivated to collaborate as part of the team, not just part of the problem.
So I have served on different nonprofit boards, and the one thing that I always do is I show up prepared. So when I get a packet, I read my packet beforehand, I make my notes so that I can contribute meaningfully. But I will say one thing, that I strongly feel that whatever emotions happen during a board meeting, they stay in the board meeting. I'm not someone who takes anything personally. I don't have an ego about those kinds of things. And if we disagree during a board meeting, it should be respectful disagreement. And it doesn't mean that I will give you the stink eye when I see you at Starbucks the next time I see you. That is not the kind of person I am, and that is how I would work on the board. I'm not afraid to voice my own opinion, but I'm very respectful of everybody else's voice as well.
A quick comment. I talked to board members more before I was elected than afterward I was elected, because you're not allowed to talk to board members, more than 2 board members, More than one other board member, because of the Brown Act. I don't see any particular issue with communication or decorum or anything like that with board members. I think it's worked out very, very well. As many of you know, before a board meeting or during a board meeting, I will offer my views several times. But afterwards, I'd like to point out that once the vote has been taken, I'm fully supportive of whatever that vote is.
It is unfortunate that the Brown Act sort of put such a damper on board member to board member communication, but it is what it is in California and exists for the reason it exists. So I think a lot of helping meetings go smoothly is actually about interacting with the administration prior to a board meeting. There are some boards around, but fortunately not, that have members that sort of show up and sort of pull the packet out of their briefcase, and it's clear that it's the first time they've actually looked at it as they sit down to begin the meeting. And we're fortunate that we have no members like that. And I'm fortunate that I have the time and energy to actually usually go through the packet and go back to the administration a couple of days before the meeting with questions for clarification or possible mistakes, and give it. And I think some of my other colleagues do this as well. And the sort of that back and forth before the meeting helps make sure that everybody is on the same page, that we have the data that we need, and that we can be as productive as possible on the day.
It's an Amber Alert. This is just a test. Please ignore it.
Okay. As a follow-up, how do you see your role as a board member, and what is your primary responsibility? And let's go Vladimir, Ying, Brian, Shawley.
Board members are trustees. They are members of the Board of Trustees, and my primary role is to ensure that all the students of Los Altos get the best education they can. And sometimes it's hard to do that.
Ying?
I see there are three things associated with a board member. One is physical accountability. I want to be, the best stewardship, provide the best stewardship for the public funds, because I think right now the district is projecting 7 to 7.5% property tax increase every year as a revenue to the district. However, I do think we need to really prepare for a rainy day. If people still remember 2010, 2011, when we were in deficit, where there's zero or negative growth in our revenue, then I think we cannot expect, the market will continue like, what we've seen in the past 4 or 5 years. For the next 4 or 5 years. So that's number one. Second one, I really see the advocate for public education. I think part of the reason, the enrollment declining is also, I think we need to continue to broadcast and market our programs throughout the whole community. So we give people, clear understanding what the options and, what options are in the district. Thank you. The board's role is, oversight and strategic planning, and that covers a whole bunch of things from curriculum to financial to everything else that the district does. But, it's important to remember that as a board member, I'm one of 5 people, and we don't operate on a day-to-day basis, right? The administration of the district is doing the day-to-day operation of the school, and we're providing feedback and oversight and questioning and long-term strategic planning. And as one of 5 people, and so it's a different dynamic, and it took me a little while to sort of get used to it, as I said, coming from a more corporate environment. But I also agree that board members' role is also to advocate for education, public education, and children in general. So I've met with Assemblyman Mark Merman several times, and Senator Jerry Hill, Supervisor Smidian. So it's important to make sure that what we're facing in public education at the local level is filtering up to our state level and county level representatives that are making a lot of decisions that affect us.
Okay.
So since Jan asked what is the primary responsibility that I see as a board member, then I will just say that my primary responsibility is to listen to our parents and our families and children who chose to attend our LASD schools. I need to make sure that you guys are well taken care of and you feel supported both inside and outside of the classroom, because the reach of the school is not just for those 6 hours that our kids are in the classroom. I did read a book, Yang and I both like to read a lot, and the one that I read is called Servant Leadership. And it's how can I best serve you? That's the kind of leadership style that I ascribe to. And so I want to listen to our parents and hear what you have to say and hear what your concerns are. I love being one-on-one with people, so I would always make myself available. I also very strongly support our public school system. I am a product of the K through 12 public school system in New York City. And I feel that our public schools, I mean, it sounds very hokey to say this, but they preserve our democracy. They give everybody equal access to education. And so we need to make sure that that's there for every child who comes after our kids.
Okay. Everyone got that one? Okay. All right. Now what you've all been waiting for. How will a 10th campus affect the district? And let's go Ying, Brian, Shali, and Vladimir.
So for the 10th campus, I think there are several questions need to be answered. First of all, the necessity. Do we need a 10th site? So overall, I think people are aware that our enrollment has been declining. If we remember 2014, when Bullis Charter School and the LASD signed the 5-year agreement, the projection for 2017 for LASD was 4,920 students. The actual came in last year was 4,392. So there are more than 500 students shy to the original projection. So we definitely need to sit down and really rationalize, the purchase of the 10th site. And the second is, I think, the price. How much it's going to be. I know the team has been working, there are a team of people working vigorously on the negotiation. So I think it really depends on how much. And the third thing is really who really need it and what's the purpose of that. So given the growth of North El Camino, I really see if we, at the end of the day, decide to purchase that site, it needs to be a middle, like a neighborhood school to serve the surrounding area. Thank you.
So thanks to the cooperation with the City of Mountain View, the land cost for the coal site is going to be, I think, more than justified by the benefits both to LASD and to the broader community. We're looking at adding 6 acres, I think, in total between a school campus and a park of open space over in that area, rather than 6 acres of 8-story buildings, which is what it would otherwise turn into. So I think regardless of which students end up going to school there, it's going to be a tremendous asset both for the district and for the community, and it's really the last chance, I think, in our lifetimes to add that kind of neighborhood asset to this area. Our enrollments are currently declining. That's also what they said back in the 80s when we ended up losing a lot of our campuses back in the day. So I think that our role as a board is to strategically plan for the future. We're looking at a densifying area. It's only going to get denser in the future. We're going to have more kids. We're going to have fewer fields because things get filled in. And the notion that rather than create a new campus, we should reduce the amount of open space on our existing campuses, I think is exactly the wrong direction.
So the question is, how will attend the campus affect our district? Well, there's 2 ways it affects our district. One is the long-term view of facilities. We have to take a long-term view of facilities. My co-chair on both Measure N and Measure Gigi is in the audience, and she can tell you it's a lot of work to run a campaign. And we do it because we love our district, but you know what? I don't want to go after another bond in 5 years. I want to take care of that issue now while we have the money and we have this amazing site. The second thing is, how will it affect the district? Let's just take a minute to look at the community partnership that we have developed with the City of Mountain View. I mean, this is amazing, and I don't know, I feel like it's being glossed over, that our school district, our public entity, and their city council, Mountain View, is working together to solve this issue together. And I really want to thank our board for all the hard work that they've done in making this happen, and of course, thanks to the Mountain View City Council members. A new school is a community asset, and I feel like this is going to be a tremendous boon to not just our district, but to Mountain View as well.
I agree with everything that Shali and Brian said. I'd like to add that it is truly a unique opportunity. 10, 15, 20 years down the road, we may have 2,000 more units from the Kohl's area, the Walmart's area. We may have 1,000 more units at various different places within the North El Camino area. And so providing facilities to educate those children is very important. I do not want to be in the position of cramming children into a room 15 years down the road. The drop in our enrollment currently is a very minor concern. It's much more important to look at the future and to decide what we're going to do and plan for the future. It's unlikely that we'll be able to get 10, 12 acres there. The site is divided up, but the whole thing, the whole area is about 12 acres in size. And given development efforts, we're not going to see that available for us anytime in the near future.
Okay. So assuming the Cole site will become a 10th school, as a number of you have seemed to support, what is your position as to what school should go there, as to whether it should be the charter school or whether it should be a neighborhood school? And let's go just straight down the line. Brian, Vladimir, Shali, Ying.
So there are a couple of considerations that the board is looking at when trying to figure out who should be housed on a 10th site. We're very cognizant of the fact that there isn't a school on the north side of El Camino, and that a lot of kids, almost 700 kids right now, have to cross to get either to elementary or junior high school. But we're also cognizant that that is where almost all of our socioeconomically disadvantaged and English learners live. And if we created a new school there, it's difficult to see how we would avoid having a situation where we have a district where we've got one school that's got half, perhaps even more, socioeconomically and English learner kids, and then the rest of the district has none. And if you look around, our district does much better on achievement gap statistics than some of the other districts in this area that do have those kinds of schools, and so we're very concerned with not going in that direction by accident. The other issue that we're facing is that we need to figure out a long-term solution for the charter school. And since we don't exactly know what their plans are, either for next year or in the long term, it's difficult to figure out a long-term plan on our own without more information from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're just going down the line this time.
Who to place at the 10th site is a difficult question, and if it were easy to solve, we would have solved it long ago. I think the real question, the way we should approach this, is to ask what are the educational outcomes that we want, and how will our choice of school or schools that fit on the 10th site affect our educational outcome. And right now there's enough variance in numbers and variance in costs and all sorts of other things that we really can't decide today what we want to put on that site. We know that we want the site because it's a unique opportunity, but we're still deciding on what actually goes there.
So I think whatever school we put on that site should serve the needs of that community that's there right now. And as I mentioned earlier several times, we're an almond family. And we get a lot of kids who are crossing El Camino, little kids who are coming with, a parent is bringing several kids at a time across El Camino to come to Almond. And so, that, to me, I would much rather see the 7th and 8th graders crossing El Camino than the kindergartners and the 1st graders. That's really rough. Let's also not forget that, as I mentioned before, school is a community asset. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have some bit of green space with all of that construction that is going on? And I feel like that is a green space that would be of benefit to the community in the north of El Camino area as well. We know that our green spaces are used by our soccer teams and our Little League teams. And just kids going after school just to hang out. So just to reiterate, please think about serving the needs of the community that's living there now.
So if the 10th site, we're going down the path to purchase the 10th site, my answer is very simple. I think we need a neighborhood school in that area. There are 689 students. from LSD, in the LSD district, are coming from that area every day. And also, I think address some of the concern that other board members may have. I'm an avid mentor at Los Altos High, and I used to serve on Boys and Girls Club in San Jose, in Silicon Valley in San Jose. I've already met a lot of socially and economically disadvantaged kids, and what I found is those kids are much more motivated to learn and to strive to their full potentials, given the lack of resources sometimes. So I really feel like there's an opportunity for us to shine, in the whole state or even the nation, to create probably the best public education for so-called, disadvantaged kids. So that's one thing. Okay, thank you.
Okay. 4 years ago, Measure N passed for a $150 million bond measure, and not much has been done with those funds to date. So how should that money be used? Should it be used for a new site, to upgrade the existing sites, or for something else? And let's go Vladimir, Ying, Shali, Brian.
I'm actually very glad that we did not spend $150 million, because we would have passed up an opportunity to buy 12 acres of land in the North Valley Camino area structured in such a way that it effectively increased our buying power by $100 million. So I'm very glad that we have not spent that money. The parcel tax increase was specifically for our curriculum and instruction, and I welcome any comments or contributions from the community on how you would be affected by a tent site.
Okay, so one thing I want to point out is 150 million 4 years ago is no longer 150 million. The construction cost in Silicon Valley has gone up 10% every single year. So 150 million back in 2014 is only worth 102 million today. That's a diminishing purchasing power. And then it's a matter of how we're going to allocate the limited resources and the fund we have. So number one, my priority is safety, because people know like earthquake is a sure thing, and also traffic. Just in the past 2-3 weeks, I heard of so many traffic accidents happened in our school neighborhood. There are some kids, got injured because of those. So I really think we need to do assessment of the safety and facility issues. And secondly, how we're going to address the BCS issue. I think that's also where the board members need to sit down and evaluate. And the third thing is, I think there's still a lot of portables and a lot of upgrades need to be done. Based on the master facility plan, I really think we need to dig into those details and see how we're going to do more, not less, with the money we have.
So I think that our board is showing really good stewardship by not having spent the $150 million yet, by not, and I don't want to use the word squandering, but squandering it on parcels that would have been suboptimal. They're showing good stewardship by increasing the value of that $150 million through the cooperation of the City of Mountain View. It's an incredible opportunity that we have, and if we let go of that opportunity now, I know 5 years from now we will be looking at the board and yelling at them for why they didn't buy that parcel. So how should the Measure N money be used? I think we should build a school on the 10th site. If there's money left over, which I hope there will be, depending on how much the cooperation of Mountain View kicks in, then I would like to see upgrades at some of our other campuses too.
There's no question that sooner is always better when you're talking about construction. But as I mentioned before, one of the issues that we have to deal with is that we don't have the tax base, frankly, that we need to build out the kind of schools that our students deserve, which is why we spent a while trying to come to agreement with the City of Los Altos on a way that we could partner to help stretch those dollars, and then we spent a while talking to the City of Mountain View, and fortunately a partnership has come together that's going to result in stretching that money to $250 million. So we're actually going to come out ahead of where we would have been even if we had used the 150 earlier. The other thing is, I know what I don't want to spend the bond money on, and that's building a lot of temporary facilities on sort of a year-by-year basis in a scramble to try to come up with solutions to requirements that we get less than 12 months in advance, which is why it's so important that we get together with the board of the charter school and figure out a long-term solution, because a new campus isn't going to be ready for probably 3 or 4 years. So we need to come together to figure out the most cost-effective way to house them, provide the facilities they need in the interim, and then find a long-term solution that works for everybody.
Okay. So this comes from a Bullis Charter School student who wants to know when you are going to solve the school facility issue and whether it will be solved before that child is out of that school. So
What grade is the child in?
I cannot divulge that. So let's go. Let's just go straight down the line. Brian, Vladimir, Shali, Ying.
We've been working on it. I mean, as many of you may know, we came to a 5-year agreement with the charter school almost 5 years ago, which I think has worked out relatively well for everybody. I've actually personally been on the subcommittee that has been meeting with charter school representatives for a year in an effort to come to some kind of new agreement. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet for a variety of reasons. However, we are in talks with the charter school. I think we will start communicating more publicly with them in each other's meetings quite soon, and I'm hopeful that, now that the 10th site is coming to fruition, we will be able to come to a long-term agreement, hopefully before the child finishes whatever grade they're currently in.
2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I was actually very encouraged that we would be able to collaboratively and cooperatively work with BCS to solve their need for a permanent home and our 10th site issues. Despite the fact that we are likely to meet with them publicly to discuss these things, I am less encouraged today than I was before. And so I don't know exactly, I can't, it's 50-50 whether the child will graduate with this problem being solved or not. I would like to emphasize that I think we all will do much better if we cooperate. And I'd also like to emphasize that I believe, at least, that we have legitimate interests, and Bullis Charter has legitimate interests, and some of those interests may clash. And it's up to us as adults to come to an agreement.
Well, I would like to thank the child first for asking the question and taking part in the civic process. I think that's really important. So kudos to you if you're still in the room. When are we going to solve the BCS issue? I mean, as soon as possible, I would hope. We've talked a lot about cooperation and collaboration tonight, and I would really love to see our two boards sitting together, cooperating and collaborating, and being transparent and upfront and honest about what each of our needs are, so that we can have a real genuine discussion about how to move forward. And once we decide how to move forward, how do we get our communities to back us up so that we can be successful? I'm looking at long-term success, not just in the short term where one party is happy or another party is happy, but long-term success where we can all be much happier than we are now.
When I decided to run for the school board, I thought about what's my true motivation. After talking to so many people, I felt that I found a lot in common. We have in common than differences. Actually, I personally talked to most of the board members on the LIC side, and most of the board members on the BCS side. I think people have a lot in common than differences, because I think people are all motivated to solve the BCS problem. But then it's down to what the solution is. Their solutions could be, way out there, like build a completely new school, and even without knowing how much it's going to be, how much money we're going to spend. Or there could be readily available solutions that in the district that we can look at. So my approach will be, I will never take any assumptions. Let's just sit down and do analysis based on facts and numbers. Let's look at what options we have in terms of time, cost, and minimize the impact on the community.
Okay. So almost 5 years ago, there was an agreement between the school district and BCS to stop the lawsuits and come up with a solution, and that time is almost done. So if you're a current board member, can you please speak to what you've done to bridge the tension and differences between BCS and the rest of the LASD schools? And if you're a new candidate, can you speak to what you will do so that when that 5-year agreement is done, we aren't seeing lawsuits? Let's go Shali, Vladimir, Ying, Brian.
So when all this community anger happened 10, 12, 15 years ago, we had nothing to compare it to, okay? So we've had a period of contention. We've had almost 5 years of peace. And from my friends who are both BCS and LASD, they have really enjoyed the peace in our community. I think because we have the copaceticness, if that's a real word, the copaceticness in our community right now, we were able to pass Measure GG working together with the charter school. We passed Measure N, we had BCS site parents helping us to get support at BCS to pass Measure N and Measure GG. I don't want to see lawsuits. I'm certainly not going to advocate for any lawsuits. And I think that our community, quite frankly, is not going to stand for it because we like the peace. We like moving forward together. So what will I do to work with the board is I will make myself available to the BCS board. I think it's always better to sit face to face with someone rather than communicate via email. So, sorry, thank you.
I reached out to a BCS board member, and I actually proposed a series of things that we could do, some of which are actually pretty radical, to cooperate more. And I hope they're taken seriously. We've had a lot of cooperation in the last 5 years. As was mentioned, we've passed the bond together, we passed a parcel tax measure together, we've stopped lawsuits, and I sincerely hope that that continues. On the other hand, we have been in mediation with the board, with the BCS the last year or so, and that has not borne any fruit so far. So there's when that mediation occurs, there's a limited amount other people can do other than the people who are actually in the mediation. So I would hope that we continue talking and continue talking about our interests rather than our positions.
I think what we need almost immediately is a framework for negotiation, a framework for dialogue. Because what I found is every time I talk to somebody, people throw out ideas, or people throw out some positions, or some solutions that without common framework. So the framework could include cost, could include how we're going to minimize the traffic to the community, could include how we're going to really transition from one to the other. So I think the framework is number one. And the second is proactive communication. I have always been reaching out, personally to the LSD side, to Randy, to Jeff, to the administrators, to have a healthy conversation. And more often I found that when we're in a kind of personal setting, people are a lot more friendly and really willing to share ideas. So I think I will continue doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I've been in discussions for a year, and one of the things that became clear to me in talking to a lot of people in the community is that, especially when you're the parent of a school-age child, you have limited energy and attention to really focus on anything that doesn't impact you today or maybe tomorrow. So I think there's a lot of communication that needs to be done to both sides and in both directions. So I think we need to explain to everybody in both the LASD and the charter school communities sort of the realities of what it's like, the different constraints and programs that exist on the other side, and also come at it with the attitude that everybody is really sincerely trying to deliver the best educational program that they can. There's no reason that this has to be viewed as a zero sum. Every inch that I get is an inch that you don't get. And I'm going to count all of the inches to make sure they're equitable. We should really be talking about what each of the educational programs needs to be effective and make sure that we can serve all of our kids. And I look forward to continuing those conversations, understand the BCS vision for how they fit into the district as a whole, and how we can come up with a solution that will benefit all of our communities, and then getting into the details from there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're at the end, so we will finish up now with a summary statement from each of you. You have 1.5 minutes each, and we will do the same order that we did at the beginning, but this time we'll also include Vladimir, so we'll go Brian, Vladimir, Shali, and Ying.
Get extra time.
You have 1.5 minutes each.
Thank you once again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. Thank you to Councilmember Pepper for moderating so ably. Thank you to everyone who came here. For everybody who's watching at home, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've heard a lot of agreement today on the challenges facing LASD, and in a lot of cases even on the solutions, I think. I hope that those of you in the audience will partner with us as advocates for teacher housing, for mental health services for children and families, and for increased state funding of preschool and special education. I hope some of you will join us in serving our children. We always need more tutors, more mentors, more art docents, more living classroom docents. We can really use whatever time and talents you have to give. Finally, we've gotten a lot of, if you'll excuse the term, creative suggestions on ways to reorganize our campuses. And here's what I always ask. How will the long-term benefits outweigh the short and long-term costs for all of the students, families, and communities affected? Kids are not crates to be stacked in a warehouse as efficiently as possible. Schools are not just containers for children or obsolete products to be discarded every couple of years. They are living communities that have deep roots, which is a lesson that our history has driven home. The onus is on those advocating disruption to explain how changes will benefit all of our families and improve the educational experience of all of our children.
Thank you. I know there's a lot more work to put something like this on than is apparent. So thank you all, League of Women Voters. I'd like to step back a second and point out that our district and BCS are some of the best schools in California. And we need to remember that. We need to continue our focus on educational excellence, and we need to do what it takes to maintain that focus. As I've said before, I really want to engage in a cooperative way to all the stakeholders in solving our 10-site BCS and facilities issue. I'd like to work with our teachers to help them be able to afford to live here. And I think we can do it. We have made progress, and I would really like to see that progress continue. Thank you.
So, my special interest in public health has always been children's socio-emotional health. And so I want to start by giving a special thanks to all the kids in the audience who came out tonight, because it's a school night. I know you've got homework, but you're witnessing the political process firsthand, and I really hope that one day I'm in the audience and you guys are up here and I can cheer you on and vote for one of you one day. Thank you to all of you, actually, for coming out on a Thursday night. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and to Councilmember Pepper. I love our school district. I love the unique character of each of our schools in our school district, including BCS. And, you know, I have friends who are BCS families, LASD families, and families who have kids in both systems. I really want to preserve and promote that special partnership that we have between our families, our district, and our teachers. And notice that I did not say between the LASD families and it's between all of us, because I have more of a community-minded outlook on life. And I really want to see our community heal and come together. And I feel like I have had some experience in doing that in this community specifically. And so I'd like to continue that work. Our schools are so special. I don't need to tell you that. My daughter is still friends with her girlfriends from Mrs. Lamb's afternoon kinders at Almond. They still have lunch together at Los Altos High School, and it's fantastic. Our schools are true community assets, and I want to protect that and nurture it, and I want to make sure that, the wonderful experience that my family has had in LASD is there for all the families that come after us. So please visit my website, sirk.com, if you want to learn more about me. And I humbly and respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
There's no doubt the district is facing challenges. And my way of solving problems are through open dialogues instead of ignorance, or through collaboration instead of confrontation. My way of solving issues, I think, are providing options instead of jumping to conclusions. So tonight, I come to you as a BCS parent with a dedication to create a change for the better and with a commitment to serve the district tirelessly in exchange for your trust. Now it's time for you to make a choice. You can choose the status quo, or you choose someone who has the experience in the leadership skill to make tough decisions and solve difficult issues, or someone who has shown the willingness to collaborate with others and make conscientious decisions for our district and for a place we proudly call home. I believe I'm the right candidate, so I respectfully ask for your vote.
Okay. Thank you to all the candidates for coming out tonight. I know it's nerve-wracking to do these candidate forums, and thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone in the audience for coming, and of course, thank you to the League of Women Voters, who are all about democracy and representation. Yes.
I'm giving a private show.